So good afternoon and happy holidays. Merry Christmas, happy Hanukkah, happy holiday season. Glad to have you on the webinar today. I hope that, my goal personally is that these webinars provide value that we run every week, whether it's pertaining to Creo solutions or Windchill solutions. We want to help educate people to what capabilities are in the market regarding PTC solutions. And I'm excited about this one today. This is a tool that I think is very underrated, underused. A lot of people don't know that it is in the base Creo package. And I remember when this came out, maybe like 6 years ago, 7 years ago, that one of our technical directors was very excited about this. And it was an extension that was sold separately from Creo. And I remember he was very excited about this and said it was a long overdue solution. And I was asking one of our sales reps, well, how come it's not really selling? And he's like, well, it's kind of overdue. And a lot of people have figured out workarounds. And when you figure out a workaround, you don't really want to go back to relearning something. Well, I would highly recommend that if you have a base package, base license of Creo, I think it starts with Creo 5. This is included with Creo 5 version. If you have that, you have design exploration extension in there, I would highly recommend learning how to use this. And if you need a tutorial on it or to learn how to use it, let me know. We have some suggestions and recommendations for you. But this is a tremendous tool to help make your job easier. Without getting in more into it, I'm going to pass everything over to Paul Dye, who is an applications engineer with PTC's Virtual Center of Excellence. Paul always does a great job on these webinars. So we're hoping today within about 20, 25 minutes to be able to give an overview to what the design exploration extension does, how it'll make your life easier, and also a demonstration on how to use it and what it looks like. So Paul, thank you again for all your help throughout the year. We look forward to a great year next year, and you can take control now.
Yeah, Rob, I think it's going to be our last one of the year. It's been, we've done a lot of good webinars this year, a lot of different topics.
I was thinking of doing one Monday and wearing a Santa hat, but
Oh, nice.
I
Well,
don't
last
have
one
one.
for me for the year, that is.
Yes, last one for us too.
Awesome. Well, happy to be on. Again, if you haven't seen one of my webinars or haven't been on any of the webcasts previously that I've run, I'm a solutions consultant here with PTC. And really happy to go through and talk today around design exploration. It's something that whenever I started using Creo that I thought was a no-brainer, different from a lot of systems that I come from in the past, really makes doing design exploration in and of itself so much easier and just does it in an environment that really facilitates trying new ideas. So that's what I'm going to go through today is explain what it is, how it's meant to be used, how you get into it, and walk through a workflow so you kind of see where it's meant to be utilized. And like Rob mentioned, some people might have current workarounds that they use to do this sort of work, but really this is the most efficient way and a proven way for doing this level of iteration work and really working into design exploration. So a lot of main challenges that this really looks to address throughout this process. And it really does start with the idea of trying new ideas out. You might be thinking of an upgrade to a current design or possibly a new version to a model that you're working with. Maybe you have more of a complex design where you want to make a significant change, but not exactly sure how you want to go about it. And it might start going through the process of trying out a lot of different concepts, pretty quick fire just to see how it might look. And finally, you decide on some new ideas that you want to incorporate. And the problem begins with how do you actually bridge the gap between having an idea that you're working with to getting to a new official design. So very real challenge that you have to work around. And what does the process look like for a lot of people? It might start by making all different types of copies and backup files, each with different design changes. It really ends up being a mess. You have models all over the place. It leads users to opening, closing, reloading each time that you want to view different design paths. It becomes a nightmare just even trying to keep everything straight. And one of the most important things here is that we don't want to lose the value of having multiple different design paths built out. The problem really is we don't want to have all of this and different configurations that you're trying to manage. There's different areas and things like wind chill and product data management that help with this. But we want to be able to do some of this work right from within Creo as well. And maybe also in a design review, you decide on a certain feature. Well, how hard is it going to be for you to go back and sift through the different versions that you've built out, stored in different file folders? It eats up a lot of time. So we have a solution to all these different challenges with the design exploration extension. So the process really involves exploring different design options to your heart's content, but at the same time, keeping track of everything that you've done in a very clean, easy to use environment. And I'll go through and show what this all looks like. The process begins with the idea of snapshots, essentially creating backup files of the session that you're currently working in the standard Creo user interface. It's your pre-modified version of the model before you go through and make any changes. And what we do is capture each of the changes that we make using checkpoints, which are going to be incremental changes that allow us to simultaneously explore different design ideas that you might have. And then from there, you have the ability to toggle between the different checkpoints that you've made, check back, go forward, branch off into different areas, and give you the ability to pick the path that is best that you want to move off of. And ultimately, you can accept all those changes and then have it applied to that pre-modified version of the model. Or if you want to just say, hey, I actually want to revert back and try out another path. Both are completely fine and really gives you that variability at any point while you're designing. And it's going to make the process painless no matter how many paths that you try out. So maybe you're going through and working down one path and you guys decide, you know what, maybe this isn't what I wanted. Maybe I want to go back to a previous version. I don't really like exactly where I'm at right now. Well, switch back, try out another iteration, see where that takes you. And maybe even after that, you say, you know what, I was right the first time. Well, that's completely cool as well. Just go right back where you continue, and you can continue right where you left off from before. You don't want to have to be the one keeping track of all these different things, right? We can go ahead and let the design exploration do that work for us at any point as you continue to branch out into different areas of your design process. So I'll go ahead and show what this looks like in the user interface of Creo. If you have any questions on this or anything that you want me to explain further into, definitely feel free to drop that in. But I can go ahead and give you a look at what this workflow would really look like for you and just give you an example of what it would look like on a model that I have. But again, this could really work for any type of model that you're working with from within Creo. So for my demonstration here, I'm going to be working with the Polaris snowmobile dataset. And right now you can see I'm just in the standard Creo session. And if you want to get started, you go right into your managed session. You have your design exploration session, and we can go ahead and click start to get into it. And once you get into this, you'll just go ahead and give it a name, something that's going to be tied to what you're going to be working with here in the design session. In my case, it's going to be working around our seat design, and we can start into that. And again, we're going to start into this with a pre-modified version of the model. And as we go through and make our changes, we can keep track of all those changes using different checkpoints along the way. So what I'll start with is trying out some different configurations that we have with our seat design. So let's go ahead and start by removing the existing seat that we have with the bar around the back. Possibly we want to go through and make some modifications to the gas tank design or maybe some of the adjacent geometry. And I'm just removing some more of these pieces here, just to go through and make room for the changes that we want to make here. And let's go ahead and start to build out some new geometry. I'm going to focus up here on our tank. Go ahead and open up a sketch that we have for the outer surface of the tank here. And like I mentioned, we might need to make some changes to the profile or maybe make some changes to the layout of the tank design. Maybe you want to increase the height in a few places, mess with the angle, whatever changes that you may have been more cautious or scared to make before because it could change a lot of things. Anything that you want to test out, we actually really have the freedom to do that here from within the exploration session. So whenever we make that change, we can see that we now have an outdated feature that's from some of our copy geometry. And what we can actually do now is look specifically at the differences that we have now that it's been changed. We can see which features are now outdated, see what it looks like now with the updated feature, what's been changed. And now we can go through and see if we like that change, we can go ahead and accept that. If you don't like it, you could go ahead and back and make some changes if you'd like to. And one thing to note is that throughout any of what I'm doing here, it's really just going to be our standard sort of CAD Creo design work. It's not going to be any different than what you would do in your normal standard design environment outside of the session. The difference is now within this exploration session is it's keeping track of the work that we're doing while we're doing that work and just noting all the different changes that have been made. So now that I have the changes that I have for my tank design, I'm going to go ahead and assemble in a new part for that seat design. So to get that part assembled in, we'll just go ahead and use some standard Creo assembly mates. Just take our global coordinate system and tie that in with the local coordinate system that I have for my seat. And now I have more of a utility version of that snowmobile seat, something that I'm happy with for now. And what I could do after I've made some changes is go ahead and make a checkpoint now at that particular configuration. We just give it a name. That'll be now our driver's seat 1. So it's gonna act as a good place for us to branch from, or simply just a spot that I want to reference back to later on. All right, so from there we can just keep going. We can delete parts, we can add in parts or different sub-assemblies, whatever modifications that we need to make from there. So from here we can go ahead and pull up a couple different boundary blends and surfaces that make up the component that we want to work with. And we can go through those, try some things out, make some changes. And again, at any point along the way, make checkpoints to keep track of what we're done, what we're doing. And that's really a lot of what the design exploration extension is all about, is giving you the chance to be more creative in that design process. So what I want to do now is actually suppress my driver's seat part here, and I want to bring in more of a stylized design. And one thing that you're going to notice any point while you're working from within here, you're not doing a file, save as, and creating copies into different folders that you have to sort through. All you do is make checkpoints here from within this one streamlined session, so allowing you to see the full history of the design. And maybe since this is a good stopping point, you can go ahead and make a checkpoint here for our driver's seat 2. Just keep moving along from there. All right, that's looking pretty good. And we can keep going through and trying things out. There's really no limit to the amount of changes or different iterations that you can go through and try here. So what I'll do in this case here is suppress the style surface that I added in and bring in a different version of the seat. And for the sake of the demonstration, I have these different seat designs already built out. But the idea is that you would normally just be going through and starting your standard design process, starting from scratch, creating geometry, just doing your normal Creo work that you're already used to. And then at any point that you feel necessary, whenever you want to preserve that design history or the steps that you've taken, go ahead and build out a checkpoint. So now I have 3 different seat designs that I can switch between. I can branch off of whatever path that I want to go off of from there. And again, it's not different copies. It's not different files that I have to open up, work with, and compare the changes, do rework, depending on where you've actually utilized each of those copies. I don't even have to accept any of the changes that I've made. At any point, I can just go right back to that pre-modified version of the model. And maybe back from here, I want to try something else out. Before we do that, and before we go through and made any of those changes, I want to go through and try some things out. So in this case, what I want to do is build out a passenger seat towards the back end of the snowmobile. So let's go ahead and clear out that frame at the back. And in this case, we'll actually go ahead and just delete the component from the assembly. So it doesn't make a change to the pre-modified version that we started in with, only has an effect at this checkpoint in this specific branch. And it's only going to take effect if I choose to move forward with the design outside of the session. So now what I'll do is bring in that subassembly that I've worked on, go ahead and assemble that into the design. And again, could be something that I already have built out, could be something that I build right here from within the context of the assembly, or something that another person on the team has been working on and sends over. So let's go ahead and bring that in. And with that now brought in, go ahead and make a checkpoint at that configuration. It's probably going to be step 1 in my design for that passenger seat, and something that will act as the base for any changes that we want to make down the line off that as well. All right, so what we've started off here is with a little bit more of a shorter design for that seat, but maybe I'm also curious what it would look like if I say increase the height of the backrest. So maybe you want to go through and make some modifications to that geometry that we've already built out. The seat was actually designed using a freestyle surface, so you can see what that looks like to make some changes there. If you haven't worked with freestyle before, you have these different nodes and points that you can pull and push on very quickly to build out more freeform surface geometry. It's a little bit different from your standard type of parametric methods that you might be used to. And those are all points that I want to move around and just simply see what it's going to look like. So very easy to go through and use one of those freestyle surfaces there. And these are changes that I can go back to later on if I'd like to. I could tighten up those dimensions. But for now, just want to get a rough idea, and we can accept the changes, regenerate the model, and I think it's looking pretty good. But maybe, again, want to go through and make some other changes. Maybe the taller design doesn't work really well with those handholds. Let's go ahead and suppress those for now. And maybe you want to go through and build out some new handholds. In our case here, we'll just bring a subassembly that someone else on my team has been working on. And we can see how that would fit in with the rest of the changes that I've made. And definitely like what we got in terms of the handles that we built out there. So we can go ahead and make a checkpoint with those added in. And that'll be for the high seat design. All right, so there you can really see what the workflow would look like. Is again, you can branch off of that passenger seat design. You can keep making changes. And it's all starting from that pre-modified version of the model that you worked with at the beginning. If we could take a look there, you can see the geometry that we started with. You can do the same thing for any of the checkpoints here. So we can see what that looks like for driver seat 1. See what changes that we made going over here to driver seat 2. And then finally, we could see the same thing over for driver seat 3. So as you can imagine, this is very useful for things like design reviews, where you're very able to clearly show the changes that were made between each iteration and really the thought process with each of those. It's all being captured right here from within that exploration session. So one configuration may have only taken 10 minutes to create. Maybe another would have taken multiple days. Whatever it may be, you can just go ahead and take what you've done, accept those changes, and now save that session. And only at this point would it be applied to the model. And then you're brought right back into that standard parametric environment that you're used to. And again, at any point throughout this as well, you could still go through and jump right back into that session if you'd like to and work with any of those iterations. They're always going to be available at the same time as well. And it's not different copies that you have to go back and reference. It's all going to be managed within that one design exploration session that's tied in with the model. So very useful tool, and is really going to help out anyone that's doing more of this iterative design work, which is a large majority of the customers and different people that are working with Creo nowadays. So just a quick look at the workflow there. Again, if you have any questions on anything that I went through and showed, feel free to drop those in. It's definitely going to look different depending on everyone that's working with the tool, right? It's definitely going to not always act the same way, or you're not going to, it's going to act the same way, but it's not always going to be used in the same method that one person might use for a snowmobile design. Someone might just be working on a singular part and trying out different geometry on a bracket, for example, and trying out different levels of thicknesses and radius, whatever it may be. It's also still going to be very useful to use a design exploration for that sort of work. And mainly, first and foremost, what you're doing is you're facilitating creativity. You don't have to worry about managing all these different files. You can instead just go through and make whatever changes that you really want to, move this around, try a new set of wheels, add delete parts, mess with the colors. You don't want to leave any stone unturned. You're probably not going to use every single design change that you try, but that's really the whole idea. Is once you find what you like, there's not going to be any doubt that it's going to be the right one. And it really helps with things like design reviews, really go back and show every step of the process that took you to where you are today. So very interactive, and it's going to help you along that process. All right, so that goes and really covers everything I wanted to talk to you today. So with that, I can pass it back over to you, Rob.
Oh, great job as always. And thank you very much. So I'm going to post this onto our YouTube page at some point today or tomorrow. I'll send out the recording to everybody. But in the meantime, if you want to see a more detailed demonstration on the design exploration extension or anything, Creo, Windchill, or any other PTC solutions with ThingWorks or augmented reality, or even the Codebeamer ALM solution, you can just respond to the emails that go out to you to invite you to these webinars. Respond to those, they come directly to me, and I'll be more than happy to help you. Or you can contact us at info at 3hti.com. So thanks again for being on, everybody. Merry Christmas, happy holidays, and we look forward to seeing you, educating you, and entertaining you next year. Take care, everyone.